You want to hear another story about corporate greed? Of course you do. On October 29th, 2018, Lion Air Flight 610 took off from Jakarta, Indonesia. 13 minutes later, it plunged into the Java Sea. 189 people, gone. Less than 5 months later, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 crashed 6 minutes after takeoff. 157 more lives erased. 346 people dead in under a year. 2 brand new Boeing 737 MAX planes, and Boeing already knew exactly why. This is the story of how one of America's most trusted companies chose profits over human lives, and then tried to cover it up. Boeing wasn't always like this. For decades, it was an engineering-first company. Pilots used to say, "If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going." But somewhere along the way, everything changed. In 1997, Boeing merged with McDonnell Douglas. Suddenly, the engineers weren't in charge anymore. The accountants were. Executives started obsessing over stock price instead of safety margins, and in 2011, that obsession created the 737 MAX disaster. Here's what Boeing was up against. Airbus had just launched the A320neo, a more fuel-efficient plane. Airlines were switching fast. If Boeing didn't respond, they'd lose billions. Building a brand new plane from scratch? That would take 10 years and cost $20 billion. Too slow, too expensive. So Boeing did something reckless. They decided to slap bigger, more fuel-efficient engines on the 50-year-old 737 design. Problem: the new engines were so big they had to be mounted higher and further forward. That changed how the plane flew. Specifically, it made the nose pitch up dangerously in certain conditions. Any competent test pilot would have noticed this immediately. But Boeing didn't want pilots to notice. Why? Retraining pilots on a new plane would cost airlines hundreds of millions in simulator time. American Airlines alone threatened to order 100 Airbus jets if Boeing forced retraining. So Boeing made a promise. The MAX will fly exactly like the old 737. No extra training needed, not even an iPad course. To keep that promise, Boeing added a secret software system called mcas. mcas, Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System. If the plane's nose pitched up too high, MCAS would automatically push it back down. Sounds reasonable, except Boeing gave MCAS the power to override the pilots, and it only relied on one angle of attack sensor. If that single sensor failed, MCAS would think the plane was stalling and force the nose down repeatedly until the plane crashed. Boeing test pilots begged to add a second sensor. Engineers raised red flags. The safety analysis claimed MCAS failure would be a 1 in 10 billion flight-hour event. That was a lie. The real risk was hundreds of times higher. But here's the worst part. Boeing deliberately hid MCAS from pilots. It wasn't in the flight manuals. It wasn't in the training. Most 737 MAX pilots had no idea the system even existed. Until Lion Air 610 started fighting an invisible force, pushing it into the ocean. After the first crash, Boeing blamed the pilots. They told the FAA, "Foreign pilots just aren't as good as American ones." They told airlines, "Nothing to see here." Then Ethiopian Flight 302 happened. Same exact pattern. Pilots screaming, "Pull up, pull up," as MCAS forced the plane into the ground at 500 miles per hour. Only then did the world ground the entire 737 MAX fleet. Internal Boeing messages later revealed the truth. One employee wrote, "This airplane is designed by clowns, who are in turn supervised by monkeys." Another, "I still haven't been forgiven by God for the covering up I did last year." A test pilot admitted he had unknowingly lied to regulators. Boeing paid $2.5 billion in fines. They settled with families for billions more. But no executive went to jail. The CEO walked away with $62 million. Today, the 737 MAX is flying again. But every time you board one, remember, 346 people paid with their lives so Boeing could save a few $1 billion and avoid a training course. If you want to know which companies are making the same deadly choices right now, subscribe, because the next disaster is already in the making. Hit the bell. New video on Friday. See you in the next one.